This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We're learning Sefer Ezra, Parak Daled, Pasuk Yud Beis. Learning Shvila Zecher Nishmas, Tamarata Ben Chaim, Rav Gershon Aryeh Ben Yosef Alevi, and Raitza Bas Avraham HaKohen Shem Shem and Aliyah. Shvila Melitza Yisharm for the entire Mishmach Abi Eskol Tzedek. Okay, so we're talking about the letter that's being sent by the secretary and scribe to Koresh. Right? We learned that Rechum, the secretary, and Shimshai, the Sefer, wrote a letter to Artaxshasta, to Koresh, to try to make accusations about the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. So we saw these psukim. I want to tell you interesting insights on the Malbim. Pasuk Yud Beis, Yediah lahavi lamalka, should be known to the king, Di Yehudaye, that the Jews, Di Sliku min levasach, that have come up from you, Aleina Asai, have come to us, Yerushalayim, to Yerushalayim, Kiryasa Maradta, a rebellious city, Uvishta Banayin, and an evil city they're building, Vishuraya Ashachlilu, the ramparts they are founding, they are laying the foundations, Vushaya Yachitu, and the walls they are connecting together. Now, we have to understand that this letter was originally written by Misritas Tavel, and according to the Malbim, it was translated by Be'el Te'e, Rechum, and Shimshai. And the question is that we're going to
like a snitch on the Jews that they were building.
That they're building the.
Trying to get they're building.
They're building Beis HaMikdash as an act of rebellion. Now we're going to see that Koresh's reaction, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, is that Koresh is going to listen to the accusation, and he is in fact going to put a halt to the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Question is, if you look in Sefer Esther, Megillah Esther, Parak Ches Pasuk Ches, it says, Ki chesav Hashanah b'shem hamelech v'nachtayim v'tabas hamelech ein lahashiv. So one of the rules of the Persian government was, whenever they issued a decree, they can never retract. So how, in fact, was Koresh going to listen to the accusation and put a halt to the Beis HaMikdash? He already wrote, formally, giving permission to the Jews to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. And also, it says over here that that they sent a letter that the Jews are building a rebellious city. They weren't building a rebellious city. In fact, they were just doing what Koresh told them to do. So why weren't Shimshai and his other cohort, Rechum, why weren't they afraid? Koresh would just send some spies down, see what's going on, see a bunch of Yiddelach building a shul, big shul, exactly what Koresh said, and he would kill them. I mean, Koresh was a benevolent king. He was called Koresh because he was a melech kosher. So he would see the Jews are doing exactly what he gave them permission to do. He would kill all these accusers. So Malbim has a very ingenious way of understanding this. The Malbim learns that the original letter was written in Aramaic and is being translated in Persian. And this pasuk Yud Beis, there are two ways to read it. You have to know where to put the comma. You could read it, Yediah lahavi lamalka, it should be known before the king. Di Yehudaye, that the Jews, Di Saliku min levasach, that have come up from you, Aleina Asay Yerushalayim, have gone up to Yerushalayim. And Yerushalayim, by the way, historically, Koresh, is Kiryasa Maradata Uvishta Banayin. Yerushalayim is historically a rebellious and vicious city. So the Jews are doing what you told them to do. They're going to Yerushalayim. By the way, Yerushalayim is a vicious city, a rebellious city. And what are they doing? What? Because throughout history, the Jews rebelled against Yerushalayim, against Nebuchadnezzar, and against Sancherev. So therefore, they'll probably rebel against you. And what are they doing there? Now, what were the Jews doing in Yerushalayim? They were just building Beis HaMikdash. The Shuraya Ashachlilu, they were setting the foundations of the temple, the Beis HaMikdash. V'ushaya Yachitu, and they were stringing together the walls. That, in fact, is one way of reading it, and according to that way, there's no accusation over here. They're just slipping in, Meseach Lefitumai. By the way, the city of Yerushalayim is a rebellious city. But they wanted the pasuk to be read a different way. You know how they wanted the pasuk to be read? Yediah lahavi lamalka, should be known before the king. Ti Yehudaye, that the Jews, Ti Sliku min levasach, that are coming up from you. Aleina asai. They're going up to us. L'Yerushalem, to Yerushalayim, Kiryasa, Maradata, rebellious city, Uva'ishta, and evil, Banayin, they are building. That's what they're doing. They're building a rebellious city. According to the first way of reading it, you put the comma like this. They're coming up to Yerushalayim, which is traditionally Kiryasa, Maradata, Uva'ishta, stop. And what are they building? They're building the temple. Banayin, they're building Shuraya, Ashachlilu, Vushaya Yachitu. But they wanted it to be read, they're going up to Yerushalayim, and they're building Kiryasa Maradata Ve'ishta Banayin. They're building a rebellious city. In fact, the Jews were not building Yerushalayim. They were only building the temple. But the accusation was said in a way that the pasuk could be read, that they're not just, the word Banayin is not going on the next words of the foundation and walls of Yerushalayim, it's going back on the previous words on the rebellious city of Yerushalayim. So take a look at the Malbim. Malbim says, Asay Yerushalayim, Kiryasa Maradata Uva Banayin V'Shiraya Shachlilu, Bazeh Haya Hamirma V'Haziyuf, Sha'asa Hamatikim. The copiers of the letter, this was their forgery. There are two explanations. You can explain Chumash Kasav Kiryasa Maradata. You could explain when it said a rebellious city, Musav Lamala. It's going on above. That they came to Yerushalayim, which is traditionally a rebellious city. And Umaymer Benin, Umaymer B'fnei Atzmai. The word Benin is a separate statement. Ratzalaymer Shabaynim Shambinyan. And what is it? What it's about to say. But they wanted it to be read, Kiryasa Maradata Ve'ishta Banayin. They are building a rebellious city. Let's do one pasuk. Pasuk Chav Gimel. Ke'an. Now, Yediya Lahavi Lamalko should be known before the king. Tihain Kiryasa Dach Tismaneh. That if you build the city, the Shuraya Yishtach Lulun, and the walls you found, Minda V'loy V'halach. Then these three kinds of taxes, La Yintanun. The Jews will never pay taxes to you, king. The Asbois Malchim Tehanzik, and the treasury of the king will be harmed. Okay, one more. Ke'an. So now, Kol Kovel. Consequently, Di Malach Heichla Malachna. We want to destroy the temple. The Arvas Malka Loi Arach Lana. And the disparagement of the king is not pleasing for us. Lamechse, to see, in other words, they're sort of proclaiming their self-righteousness, that we're not motivated for personal motivations. We have the king's honor in mind. Al Dinah Shalachna, this is why we're sending it to you. V'haidana Lamalka, and we're letting the king know. And they go on to say a very sly thing.
But I mean, this is the same kind of reasoning that Haman used. You know, I'm doing it in the best interest of the king.
You know who the scribe was? Shimshai, Haman's son. Exactly.
He wasn't killed with the rest of his...
This is before the story of Purim. Right? So, Koresh, Achashverosh, Daryavesh. So this is before the story, even though we read in Pasuk Vav that it talks about the accusation in the time of Achashverosh. Rashi learns, then we go back to talk about the accusations that occurred before. And they pull a very sly trick. They say, you want proof that this is a rebellious city? Look in the ancient annals of history and see the way Yerushalayim was vis-a-vis the Gentiles. Look how they were the ones who taxed the Gentiles in the region. So if you think Jerusalem is just building a little shtibel over here and they're going to be loyal to you, you just have to study history. And they're going to focus on Koresh paying attention to the historical record of Yerushalayim so that he doesn't pay attention to the factual events that were actually occurring there, that the Jews were not planning on rebelling. And in fact, Koresh is going to look at the historical documents, see that Yerushalayim was always looking to be a superpower, and he is going to put a halt to the construction of Yerushalayim. Why? But I thought he made a decree that we could build a temple. But when he sees the historical record, he'll see that he misjudged, and he'll see that in fact the Jews are doing more than he's giving permission, and therefore he's going to put an end to the reconstruction. We're going to hold it over here for today. Glatstein, have a wonderful.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.